915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We mention all of those very many ways that you can get at us, see the show, comment on it, participate as you see fit, because we're out in all those ways to make it possible for y'all. So if you want to do it on any of those, already some likes and reacts coming in here. Michael Robert Tipton and Ed Clore over on the Facebook page, again, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. But of course, we've got the other ones as well. Twitter at Talk El Paso, twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, and of course, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube. Again, it's not a quiz. I mean, maybe if we ever had like Talk El Paso trivia, I don't know how that would work. It might come up there, but otherwise, no, you don't have to know. Don't have to have it memorized. Just know what works for you as we continue our mission to have, well, live local talk radio discussion about the things that affect us here in the borderland, because, well, no one else is going to talk about the things that affect us right here at home the way that we do. And there's quite a lot to talk about here today. A lot going on. Just to name a few of the things topping the charts in my mind, anyway, as we start off this last full week of the month. If someone could tell me where the rest of July went, that would be great, because I seem to have missed a chunk of it. Yes, we had some sickness out last week, doing much better this week. So pardon any vocal foibles, as we're still got that little bit of a cough left. But in any case, we're back strong and in studio here and talking about just a few of the things, again, top of mind today. School safety, as we're creeping closer to that next school year being focused on here in the area. We'll definitely be having a little bit more talk about that later this week as well, including with our news partners and what they got working on. Also, more on the city council and the potential tax rate. Already one decrease being considered, but another one, well, potentially in the works. One of the big days of data coming out today, actually, that will affect those discussions, well, for all of the taxing bodies involved in this in our region, even as there are some more questions, some more answers to an extent coming from, well, some of the big projects that are being discussed already. I mean, UMC comes to mind, other of the taxing entities, including El Paso Community College, the county, the city, any of those special districts, water improvement, etc., that y'all may be in. Yeah, the full picture, well, we're continuing to work on it anyway, even if it isn't totally clear just yet. But the thing that's coming out today, or should be in the hands of local elected officials or local bodies anyway, as of early this week, if not today, will be the certification of the Central Appraisal District's actual property values for any particular district for this year. So, if you're wondering about these timelines, you might not be totally blamed for being unsure, thinking, wait, wasn't that done? Haven't we done this? Wasn't the protest period over? Yes, technically, but the actual certification, because once all the protests are done with, that's when then the Central Appraisal District, which then certifies the property values for all of those taxing entities, and probably a few more that I'm forgetting out there, to determine, okay, what are you actually going to get? It's this kind of thing that then the best example I can give from some years back is when there was that huge contestation of the appraised value that happened on behalf of, well, I think at that point, now Marathon Refining, but at that point in time, I believe it still was Western Refining, if I'm not mistaken. When they did that, I mean, it was technically just like a percentage change, not even like a whole half amount or anything, but the amount that came down off of it ended up changing some local budgets in the order of millions. So that's why the certification period exists, because if you're starting to make decisions on how you're going to spend money, or how they're going to spend our money, I guess I should more accurately say, and you don't have the right numbers, or the numbers change on you, that's when they get a little bit dicey, a little spicy, or people start getting really ticked off, more accurately, because, yeah, if we're looking at, okay, we'll bring in this much money, I'm not sure there's anyone out there who's been okay during the pandemic and some of the more restrictions. There was a lot more maybe sales tax, those kind of usage fees. The state of Texas actually saw a little bit of an increase, more than anticipated, even with the other things definitely trending downwards, employment, all that kind of stuff. So if there were to be that, oh, by the way, guys, we brought in some umpteen extra $1 million than we expected on your property taxes, I would imagine that there would be more than a couple of people ticked off out there. So again, the important thing is that either as of today or early this week, those conversations will be able to start moving forward as, again, the Central Appraisal District actually puts forth what they are expecting the local property tax venues, all of them, and therefore the agencies from them to actually be able to bring in. So this is important because, well, anyone who's been looking at their tax bill, as I've been very much poring over with the whole transition we're making on my personal end, that, yeah, it's gonna be a thing. And at the very least, the city, tax setting season, as I've begun to call it, is well underway here. And so there's already been some discussion of lowering the city's tax rate that 90 cents, give or take, per $100 of taxable value, down a little bit, but even that recircles, it's down about 3/4 of a cent so far. It's what they've already put forth. But of course, beginning of last week, City Council directed City Manager Tommy Gonzalez to look at, okay, what else can be done and what might those rates be, but they're kind of on hold till now because of, again, those certifications. So there are some possibilities, some potentials. Whether or not it ends up, because again, just passed as prelude, the city kept their tax rates flat in the most recent completed budgeting session. That, of course, ended up being a slight tax increase because the property values went up at the same time. Fun stuff. So if they do that same route or actually go to lowering it, those discussions probably going to getting pretty intense over the coming weeks after these initial numbers come out. I know that the state of Texas already, we've had some in the comments that have been calling for, essentially a stoppage on it. There, of course, has been some things that came out, like Governor Greg Abbott's previous, one of the many special sessions I know. Last year was the year of the Texas legislature for just how long it was in place. Some property tax formula changes, essentially what can be done with like homestead exemptions, veterans exemptions, certain things that you all may or may not have actually voted on when it comes to those constitutional amendments. This is why those matter, by the way. That happened, but there's already been some pledges and some being reinforced, actually, of having more on that for the next Texas legislative session, which, yes, we are very much in the wind-up to. It's the way it's being talked about is making me think less and less that there is the potential for any special sessions, if only because essentially be throwing all the legislators a curveball. Right now is when bills are being authored, committees or hearings or things like that. Information is being gathered to then be baked into the bills that will have to be ready to go essentially day one, right at the start of the year for the next Texas legislative session. And that is one of the priorities, that pledge, at very least, that has been made by Governor Greg Abbott. Of course, the governor for special sessions is very much in the driver's seat when it comes to the regular sessions, which come every other year, Texas being the weirdness that it does. We are looking at Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, correct myself, being the one really, really setting the agenda. At the very least, he has been. Of course, there is, Texas Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan. But given the way that things have been in the last couple of sessions, let's look at that as instructive for what will come next. Very much whatever Dan Patrick has been focused on has been what ends up moving forward, or not, as the case may have been, but that's just a little bit of the consideration. So I know, as much as there's been focus on what the state could do to limit it, there's certainly been an appetite previously on the part of the state legislature to go into more local affairs and say what can or can't be done, at the very least in parts. If it happens this way or not remains to be seen. But in any case, definitely locally, important dates coming this week as we're looking at what your property tax is, the total valuation, and therefore how the local bodies will start responding. Look for that to start hitting this week. Again, the actual report's expected out today. We'll probably see more reporting on it as we get further through the week here, so stay tuned on that here. Otherwise, it's already taking us through the first break of this hour right now. We got a lot of stuff we were talking about, a lot of people tuning in, chiming and dropping those likes, and we actually appreciate it. Matt Olson, Ida Beza Gardner, Ted Kors, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, Ed Clore, and Michael Robert Tipton. Be sure to catch him Fridays for this week. Some changing schedule we'll talk about for him coming up for the Tipping Point with Mike Tipton over on our sister station, Fox Sports 1380. But in any case, got to take that first break right now. So coming back after this, talk more about those school safety things, because if there are any youngsters in the audience, hey, you're pretty advanced for your age, it sounds like, but I also know you're probably not that happy about the return of school. Maybe not. It's coming soon. What some of the school safety measures that are already being talked about in our area are, and what that development will continue to be. So stay tuned for more of that and all the things we do here on Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Comments over on the social media if you deem them necessary. Otherwise, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso traffic, 54 Patriot southbound at Trowbridge. There's an accident that's closed the right shoulder, multiple vehicles off to the right. Trans Mountain, westbound at Tome's Access Park. A crash there has got the right lane blocked. Paseo del Norte at Trans Mountain West, an accident blocking the right lane with EMT on the scene. And Joe Battle southbound at Montana. Watch for two white semis off to the right shoulder. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
Many of us take the fact that the NBA is an international phenomenon for granted, but that hasn't always been the case. We'll bring you the story of how the NBA became, well, the NBA. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Did you know audio memory lasts 6 times longer than visual memory? That's why businesses advertise with iHeartMedia, the #1 audio company in the country. Reach consumers with radio, podcasting, streaming, and more. Make your business a household name and visit iHeartAdvertising.com or call 844-BUY-RADIO. Grow your reach, grow your business. Call iHeartMedia today. Visit iHeartAdvertising.com or call 844-BUY-RADIO.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Hey, hot dogs, sausages. Maybe instead of using a stadium vendor to feed the office, we should have just ordered through Easy Cater.
I got nachos here. Nachos?
Yeah, right here. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was fun at first, but it is kind of disruptive.
Cheesesteak here. Who wants a cheesesteak?
Over here.
Coming at you.
Oh, right in the face.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but Easy Cater just does. Food for work on time and as ordered from over 85,000 restaurants. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of things we're discussing here today. Of course, economics never too far from our heart. Also, a lot of stuff going on whenever it comes to border security, immigration. Talk more about that. Some more border visits happening lately. ramp up for the midterm elections definitely happening if you were at all confused about that. But getting a little bit closer to home, as we are definitely closer than that anyway, is definitely the restart of school. A lot of them starting to come back and go around towards the start of next month, which is, again, right around the corner. So we're definitely getting close to it here. And, of course, school safety, as much as the Uvalde situation, the investigations continue into that and the shooting at Robb Elementary. Of course, that is left for a lot of others wondering what is going on with the local security situations. Of course, just as a reminder, you want to make sure to tune in tonight to KFOX 14 News at 9 with our news partners there, as Stephanie Seifert, a regular guest of the show and friend, talks about her special report into that and some of her investigative reporting. So make sure to tune in to that, but some other things coming out even ahead of that. So no, I'm not spoiling her report. Don't get me in trouble with here, including a Clint ISD updating some public numbers and information on their safety measures, and a lot of which just make a level of sense, I have to say. Because some things I've mentioned previously, not that I spend a whole lot of times in schools, particularly elementary schools these days, but when I have had cause to go to one of the ones that I've been previously most impressed with, which is the Sylvester Reyes Elementary over there in the Canutillo Independent School District, the way that they have the access change. I mean, it's a very much newer school. You may have heard about it in the news. That's that one that had that little bit of kerfuffle over the painting of the large flag mural on one of the structural wall, but you'd know it if you see it. Trust me, if you're continuing on Wrestler headed towards the Westtown Marketplace, specifically Red Road, continuing around there. There you go. You'll run into it, and it's hard to miss. That was the previous time, but the actual construction of it, that scene, the way it's locked down, I mean, sure, there's plenty of egress routes for, say, fire escapes necessary, but the way visitors are able to actually make it or not, as Matt Olson liking the use of kerfuffle there, it's an underused word. I appreciate it greatly and use it just about any chance I get, because the best way to describe it was a whole lot of hemming and hawing and back and forth. Essentially, the painting, there was a relief of a flag that was painted on, that was on the building, kind of, so it's structurally in there, and then it was painted the correct colors, as we also have Steve Ivey chiming in over there. Good afternoon to you as well. So then the flag was then painted the color of the flag, as opposed to just being a relief, and apparently some in the neighborhood took issue with that being I think, I'm not quite sure if it was an HOA thing. It sounded like an HOA thing, being these are not approved colors by the HOA, despite the fact that it was an American flag. That's why I'm calling it a kerfuffle in this case, because it was almost to the point of ridiculousness. Hullabaloo. That's very good. Hullabaloo, another very good word there, Matt Olson suggesting there for me, because that's really what it came down to. Because ultimately, yes, it is staying painted after some, among other things, local veterans groups got involved saying, you're saying what now about the not being able to show a mural of the flag? Like, what? It was just ridiculous. But the reason I'm talking about that school is not for that ridiculousness, but again, the purpose of the actual school security and more of that essentially being embraced in other areas. Clint ISD, so on the opposite end of the county, we're talking about here from the school I'm discussing, now working on having safety vestibules at school entrances, specifically along with cameras in all schools. So really what it is, it's changing the nature of the access point. Not going to get too much into the details here because, you can see the reports with our news partners. Also, not going to be really wanting to give out the exact. If you need to get through it, go experience it for yourself. And otherwise, don't worry about it, because knowing the exact details, there's security implications with it. Same reason you don't take pictures of TSA, the way I kind of feel about it. So I am worried about it in its own way, not the right way to put it, but they've got examples and what it is to basically maintain the access and change it so that it is more controlled while still allowing, again, important things like escape during fires and times like that. So, yeah. And there's also another point of this that has come up a bit on, well, when Governor Greg Abbott's time in turning about this even previously, ever since a shooting that happened in Santa Fe, Texas. There was more promises to work on school safety bills. So there is more maybe coming about this, and there are some plans to improve infrastructure following Uvalde, but a lot more of it to come. Again, you can find more on this report and more on these kind of stories from Estefania with our news partners over there at KFOX 14. But I guess I have a level of comfort, but I also hope, because anytime we start talking about security, safety, public safety, etc., there's a temptation to just say, well, let's just say we're doing something and hope people buy into it. Essentially, security theater is another way to put it, because whether it looks good versus is actually functional, particularly when talking about public organizations, under a lot of scrutiny, there might be a temptation to put it more towards the, well, as long as it looks good, it'll probably never happen. And that's the kind of thinking, or backwards, completely non-forward thinking, that we really, really, really don't want in these cases. So I'll be, of course, looking at some of that report here and see what comes out of it, because ever, again, so slightly important. Yeah. Safety vestibules, just the way schools are even being constructed, it's a sad fact that even security concerns have to be considered, but better to be responsive, need it, not have it, etc., than, well, the other way around, actually. Now I think about it, better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Yeah, that's, and proper training on it, making sure that we're not doing too many cry wolf things, as may have been at least a part of the situation coming out of Uvalde. That's why those continued hearings and reports coming out on it probably be a big feature, again, of the upcoming legislative session. Even if there isn't entirely, I'm not going to totally write off the chance of there being a special session. In the meantime, it's decreasing with each given day, of course, because all the effort is being put into the next legislative session. But if we don't end up before next year having a special session, you can bet this will be very much a big point being made during that legislative session. And local legislators involved in that as well, including, you can see interviews with our news partners, including with one of the vice chairs of that actual committee on the House side in the Texas legislature, State Rep Joe Moody, on what his priorities and some of the major things coming out of this are. Some uncomfortable things he says that we're going to have to address, including how we even appoint and appropriate safety funding for these kind of things here. So, yeah. And more talk about hullabaloo going on over there. Coming up on the need for our next break here already, as we are working our way through the show. Of course, another one of the major topics that we have discussed at length, of course, border security and immigration, and a lot more focus on that. A couple of notable border visits happening in recent days and weeks with some House Republican leadership from the national legislature, in this case, happening in recent weeks, and another one going on today involving, and just to make sure we keep the names straight here, Tony Gonzalez, the Republican representative from the Texas 23rd Congressional District, hosting some of there, including visiting Eagle Pass. You may have heard some of those already going by. So we'll talk more about that here coming out of this next break already, as we have a lot of the subjects we are going to continue discussing here on Talk El Paso. Again, tuned in here live as we are here in the studio. Don't worry, we're here to stay for as long as possible. Anyway, humanly, back in the saddle after the interruptions last week. But stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with your KFOX 14 News Update. A 37-year-old woman fired several gunshots apparently at the ceiling inside of Dallas Love Field Airport today before an officer shot and wounded her. Police say the woman was dropped off at the airport, walked into a restroom, then emerged wearing a hooded sweatshirt or some other clothing that she hadn't arrived in, pulled a gun, and fired several shots apparently at the ceiling. An officer who was nearby shot the woman in her lower extremities. She was taken to the hospital. Meantime, some flights from El Paso to Dallas were diverted to Midland. And authorities have arrested a suspect in connection to a deadly shooting that claimed the life of a 16-year-old El Pasoan. 19-year-old Jalen Jamal Jennings was arrested in Killeen, Texas, in connection to the shooting that killed Fabian Gomez on December 21st, 2021. The shooting happened along the 2200 block of Saragossa Road in Far East El Paso. Police reported that an altercation between occupants of two vehicles resulted in the shooting. I'm Erica Castillo, and that's your KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On Gateway West at Lee Trevino, a vehicle is blocking the right lane, stay to the left there. 54 Patriot southbound, there was a crash earlier at Trowbridge. All vehicles are over to the right now. The right shoulder's still closed. A crash on Trans Mountain West in Paseo del Norte. That accident's blocking the right lane. And that earlier crash, Trans Mountain at westbound at Tom Mays Access Road. All lanes back open there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the Forewarned Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. We're going to see chances for thunderstorms increasing into our afternoon. The biggest threat with any storms that develop will be some brief heavy rainfall, which does mean we could see some localized flooding. Temperatures not as hot, thankfully. We'll be in those mid-90s, right around where we should be for this time of the year, nearly all week long. After today, we'll see those chances for thunderstorms normalize as well, about a 20% chance each afternoon. Make sure you're keeping your eyes on the sky.
This report is sponsored by Panera. They say to never mess with the classics, but Panera did that and more with their new Chef's Chicken Sandwiches. Pan-seared chicken, a secret garlic aioli recipe, Parmesan crisps, and pickled chips all on a buttery brioche roll. Try one for only a $1 delivery fee when you order on their app. Restrictions apply.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third row seating. Get up to $8,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $16.67 and 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined. Excludes Hellcat, SRT, and TRX models.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you. Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
For years, the Manhattan Project, the project to build the first atomic bomb, remained classified. But one man in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, documented the entire thing with his camera. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeart radio station. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media outlets. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, including local economics, border policies, and, well, immigration is always coming back here. So if you want to chime in over on those social media, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, more than welcome to. A lot of comments coming in there already, chiming in. Ed Clore, Steve Ivey, John Brazelton, Kathy Codry, Matt Olson, and more tuning in, chiming in over there. Also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Matt Olson, Ida Beza Gardner, Ted Kors, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, Ed Clore, and Michael Robert Tipton. And on those border visits, Steve mentioning that he wished they would come visit my neighbors and my farms right on the fence. No one comes to El Paso, and when they do, they don't ever approach farmers and ranchers that actually live and work on the line. With the, if I'm looking at the emoji correctly, the see no, hear no, speak no evil little monkeys shown there. Yeah, that sounds about right here. Ed Clore saying that BP said getaways are up to 1 million. Not quite. I think we're at 500,000, including one of the visits going on today. And, okay, not technically maybe in our broadcast area, maybe on the far reaches of it. Maybe once we get closer into the overnight hours and the signal gets stronger, maybe then, or the signal goes farther. Anyway, specifically a couple of, well, elected officials nationally, including Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez, Republican representing the Texas 23rd Congressional District, which is essentially the entire eastern edge of El Paso County, all the way to the outskirts of San Antonio, and definitely encompassing, well, one of the bigger border regions that I'm aware of any any representative, again, to the national legislature, but also visiting with some others today and recently, including Congressman Drew Ferguson, representing Georgia's 3rd Congressional District Republican, and also Chief Deputy Whip for the House of Representatives, tweeting out, and you may have heard some of the things coming up at the top of the hours here, on going and visiting specifically Eagle Pass, one of those, very much focused on areas, and saying specifically that, getaways, the ones that are, previously used to be one of the major focuses of immigration efforts. Again, the many ways it's changed has been something we've been trying to focus on as much as possible anyway, but specifically, instead of those that are then coming up and presenting themselves to either at the ports of entry or Border Patrol, etc., the ones that are, again, trying to slip through with little to no interaction with law enforcement, definitely on the rise again. Specifically, the number of getaways has already surpassed the number reported in all of last fiscal year during this fiscal year, which we're not the way through yet. That much is for sure. And Eagle Pass, home of grass. No comment on that hashtag there. And John Brownson asking, what a Republican administration get away allowing illegal activities without impeachments and prison time? Well, the amount of resources. Again, that's another focus here. Looking at the tweets from both, again, Texas Rep. Tony Gonzalez and the visiting Georgia Rep. Drew Ferguson, a lot of focus on Border Patrol and the resources and the serious demand that they are being put under, including the efforts they are doing here, which is, I think, an important one to focus on, but also, of course, Rep. Gonzalez on, among other things, Fox News over the weekend as well, saying how the southern border is, quote, the furthest thing from secure. Very much a focus on there. So, some of the things being looked at, about 500,000 so-called getaways this year so far. Again, calendar year, I think we're talking about in those terms, but about 55,000 being talked about per month along the entire border area. So not any one particular sector, but even then, getting a little bit more specific on some of the sectors, a very interesting one of the many tweets being put out by Tony Gonzalez as a part of this, saying that he was looking at the new processing center in Eagle Pass, meant to hold 1,000 migrants, costing taxpayers $12.3 million per month. During the visit today, they were already over capacity at 1,300 plus, which is a daily average. So the strain on resources and the amount of resources required for this kind of thing continuing to be strained, even if there are new things put in place. So, of course, this comes on the heels after there was another border visit, including from a more Senate side, I guess would be the right way to say it, when there was Ted Cruz and John Cornyn specifically coming and visiting similar type areas. A lot of focus going on in the Eagle Pass, Del Rio, those places because of the serious incidents that, of course, have happened in those and the continued amount they keep seeing there. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've still got plenty directly within this border sector here in El Paso and in our immediate broadcast area. But a lot of the focus coming there, though I find myself agreeing with Steve, also wishing they would come here and talk with the folks here. Open invitation if you're in the area to come on and let us know what you're looking at and what you're talking about, because seriously, there's a lot to be focused on here, even if there's a little bit more pins and needles for that potential end of MPP, migrant protection protocols, what'll actually be happening as it's ended, sunsetted, of course, coming out of the Supreme Court session. Many myriad and connected issues with all of this, as always happens, because none of these issues are simple, unfortunately, because if they were, you'd think they come up with solutions, but even the solutions are not simple, continuing to be very hard to come up with what they're going to do. So looking at what they were looking at, again, the elected officials coming through recently, looking at the facilities, at the crossings happening there. Of course, the impending one we're looking at in our area, in the more, urbanized section that we're talking about, that is the majority of our border sector. I'm sure there are getaways and gotaways, or however you're going to put them, for our sector here. But of course, the real big issue being the estimated tens of thousands waiting in Ciudad Juarez and in nearby regions to find out what will be the end or the processing going on. And that is also something that would be a good thing to have visits on, though I think most of the visits happening primarily on the U.S. side of things. So that one might be a little bit harder to see, because that one's burgeoning and waiting. And when that starts becoming an issue, you bet there's going to be a lot of focus here in our area. So some more of the comments coming in here. probably on the previous issues as well. John Brazelton saying that Texas school districts love to spend millions on football stadiums rather than taking care of security and school building maintenance. I mean, it's often their big focus, and boosters love spending on it as well, so I'm not going to necessarily blame them too much, but bring up a fair point. That's, again, you don't really focus on it till you end up needing it. It's very much a, forgot the rain jacket and umbrella at home, well, too late now kind of thinking here. RJ also saying, I wonder if they got to see the migrant had his head soaked in acid. Talking about a very graphic situation that you can see over for yourself there. Imagine National Guard and CBP seeing this. I will say, I don't think they talked about that incident specifically that you can see for yourself on screen, but we're trying not to get taken down on any of our platforms by getting too graphic here. They did say, and Steve, not specifically, the visiting congressman here, Drew Ferguson, quoted by some of the reporting going on around this visit as saying that very dark times, some very dark looks on the part of some of the CBP and Border Patrol agents with mental health on the line here as part of it. So I am sure that there has been a lot being seen because, yeah, these situations, I mean, as much as there might be considerations about what the reality or not, it's undeniable that there are still some very horrific situations that end up coming across and being there. RJ, I'm not saying that you're wrong in what you're saying, but like the cartels are G-rated, I'm just saying we got to talk about them certain ways to keep from getting deplatformed sometimes because you get too graphic. And, well, even the FCC will come after me, but specifically on our social media. So if you want to see the comments for yourself, please do so over on the social media. But yeah, the cartels, I would love to see more focus on them, but getting into those international efforts, there just has not been that much of an appetite, let's say. Enough of an appetite from really any recent administration. A lot of domestic policies or how they affect those coming in to the domestic policy area, crossing the border, etc. But I would love to see any administration being really, really willing to really focus on these cartels and how it does here. Jordan Erlander, TV reporter in the area, saying, quoting Rep. Gonzalez, saying there's a, quote, deep darkness, end quote, he sees in Border Patrol agents and their mental health as they handle migrant drownings and deaths. So, yeah, the strain on the resources and the actual service members of, we're talking about Border Patrol agents, CBP, all of them has just been, yeah. Edgar Ortiz actually letting us know related to the taxing issues. He just walked out of a successful protest of value with the Central Appraisal Districts. Not that I have an exhaustive list of them, but you're the first successful one I've heard about. So congrats there if it worked out in your favor the way you wanted it to. Here in Catherine Codry, yeah, the cartels are evil and wicked demons, putting it mildly. That's the way I think we can get away with saying it on our air and on our social media, because seriously, yeah, some of the stories that I cannot even begin to recount here from actual cases that I've been aware of are, I wonder what damage they've done to my psyche in the long run, to be perfectly honest with you. And that's just hearing about them, much less actually having to deal with them or deal with the aftermath and the situations on the border here. So let's go ahead and take that break right now and go ahead and open up those phone lines as we usually do at this point during the show, because we got a lot to talk about and a lot more to get to. So if you're wanting to get on the line and your 2 cents, of course, comments going on right now and those phone lines being open, the number to call again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Be back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Gateway West at Lee Trevino, a vehicle is blocking the right lane, stay to the left there. 54 Patriots southbound, there was a crash earlier at Trowbridge. All vehicles are over to the right now. The right shoulder's still closed. A crash on Trans Mountain West in Paseo del Norte. That accident's blocking the right lane. And that earlier crash, Trans Mountain at westbound at Tom Mays Access Road. All lanes back open there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Hot and Crispy Fries. Wendy's knows everyone hates cold and soggy fries, so they changed theirs to serve them up hot and crispy all day, every day, using only natural cut skin-on fries, prepared to golden goodness and perfectly sprinkled with sea salt. Try Wendy's Hot and Crispy Fries today at participating U.S. Wendy's.
The El Paso History Show with Andrew J. Polk is 10 a.m. this Saturday about Kasner Range, Lost Dog Trail, and projects of the Frontera Land Alliance. The El Paso History Show is sponsored by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant in Canutillo, Mission Del Rey Southwest for gifts and decor, and by M1EP Management Corporation, Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on News Radio 690 and on Facebook and YouTube.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
The dam is breaking. Coming up on the Ben Ferguson podcast, officials are now weighing real charges against Hunter Biden as the probe reaches a critical stage. So what are the charges? I'll tell you all of them coming up on the Ben Ferguson podcast. Download it now.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media outlets we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, being more or less the main one. That's where the Thunderdrum of Comments assembles for the most part, as the Skeptic Squad gets together just about every day we're on the show here. A lot of comments coming in there already, but we also have that phone line open if you're wanting to get there as well. Number again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in there as well, so if you want to squeeze in on the line, you're more than welcome to here. Going in the middle of a segment, you might get popped up live, so just stay on your toes and not stay on that line for me. What I appreciate here. Some more of the comments coming in. RJ saying CBP morale is very low. They feel like Uber drivers dealing with self-entitled migrants who expect a ride to the motel, bus or plane tickets, free phones, and a court date they'll never make here. I mean, yeah, some of the situations are complicated at best, and a lot of the ones being dealt with, even just regionally, I've heard similar kinds of morale issues going on and just feeling overwhelmed with all of it. So some of the things coming down to change the administrative duties, shall we say, some of the ones I find myself more in favor of, but yeah, there's a lot more to be done there. But let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Michael on the west side here with us right now. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Well, hello. I really appreciate your radio show, Mr. Polk. You guys do a great job. I just, as a proud American, and I know it sounds cliche, but I really want to say thank you to the U.S. Border Patrol. I had a chance to work with them as a civilian. Mm-hmm. I'm a chef-style desert rat where I drive my, four-wheel drive out in the desert. Mm-hmm. And I've had many interactions with the Border Patrol. And these guys are the most professional, down-to-earth group of guys. If you get stuck, they'll help you. They'll bring you water. And most importantly, what I've seen them do is rescue the immigrants that have nearly died out in the desert, and they go above and beyond. And we have a president, and I'm not going to go too much into that, but we have a sitting president that bashes them and wants to punish, in the media, apparently, these wonderful heroes that are out there doing stuff for us every day. So, I mean, I would just say as an American, stop and thank these guys. Tell them how much you appreciate them, because I certainly do. You know,
I mean, the amount of work that is done here, again, I've never worked directly alongside them, have some reasons both in media and other jobs that I've done to see the work, see what they do, and to call it anything besides monumental would be a mistake, because the amount of area that has to be covered here, and the amount of resources outside of any, let's just say, correct political implications. I think a lack of focus out of this administration has been frustrating to a lot of Americans. At the very least, I know in areas like ours, it's at least somewhat of a contributor to, well, polling rates, among other things. Let's put it that way.
Well, let's not forget what they did for us in Uvalde. It was the Border Patrol SRP team, I believe, that was the ones that went in and stopped the bad guy there. I mean, I know it was a team effort, but it was a Border Patrol as well as several implicated. I used to be a police officer working in that capacity as well. And local law enforcement, what they do for all the communities around is amazing. They are wonderful people. That's all I have to say.
Well, I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you, Mr. Bo.
I appreciate it again. Again, we are taking those calls, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Let's get to at least one more. We're here with that next break right now. Again, if you're calling in the midst of a segment, you might get popped up live. So be prepared, as we have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Raul. Hey, Andrew.
Hey there, Raul. What's on your mind?
News today. Rupert Murdoch, I know you know who he is. I would imagine most of your listeners do too. The owner of Fox News, the owner of the Wall Street Journal, the owner of the New York Post, very, very strong Trump supporter. The Wall Street Journal editorial board just wrote that Trump utterly failed his January 6th trial, while Vice President passed his. And the editorial board wrote, Mr. Trump took an oath to defend the Constitution, and he had a duty as commander-in-chief to protect the Capitol from a mob attacking it in his name. He refused. He didn't call the military to send help. He didn't call Vice President to check on the safety of his loyal VP. Instead, he fed the mob's anger and let the riot play out. It went on to say that character is revealed in a crisis, and Mr. Pence passed his January 6th trial. Mr. Trump utterly failed his. Now, in no small part, the Republican Party in the Donald Trump era has been marked by a craven failure to take off ramps. Trump's encouragement of white supremacy, his multi-tentacled plot to destroy our political order, and his incitement of violence and deadly insurrection. None of these have pushed Republicans to finally disavow him as a leader of their party and unfit to lead this country. During the January 6th hearings, Representative Liz Cheney delivered her closing statement, and this is what she asked every Republican to consider. Every American must consider this. Can a president who is willing to make the choices Donald Trump made during the violence of January 6th ever be trusted with any position of authority in our great nation again? What do you think, Andrew?
I think that was very much the purpose and very much the point of these hearings, was to essentially get around to that, which is why I still contend that it was probably a tactical error on the part of national Republicans to not be a part of the hearings. I know there was ideas about making it therefore questioning the legitimacy of it. I mean, that was always going to happen, as some have already made calls for, but also an understanding that this wasn't a trial and was never going to proceed like a trial, ever much smackings there may or may not have been. Essentially, that statement that you just got to there was the point in the part of, well, the people now particularly on the committee, that was the point they were wanting to get across, and why, again, I remain dubious about there being any actual charges to come out of this, because, well, honestly, from the point of those on the committee, that would probably be bonus to them, because the point was what has already happened here. But more specifically, I think that, sure, Rupert Murdoch, it's always been a little bit of give and take with the Trump administration even before it. I mean, there was some consternation going on between them, Fox News, other commentators before this point. So, sure, it may have been an alliance of convenience in some cases, but to call it exactly buddy-buddy at any real point would probably be a mistake. It always felt like, particularly inside baseball, sure, a little bit of underlying tension there, But here's what I have to say about what that then means for 2024. Let's be honest. 2022 certainly has implications as we get closer to those midterm elections. And litmus tests, I mean, there's a lot of tea leaves reading that's going to come out of it. That's for sure. Make no mistake. But more specifically then for 2024, what this will mean for that, I know we do have the former president returning to D.C. coming up for a speech. Whether or not he'll admit anything, there's always going to be that speculation right up until it happens. I fully expect that there might be something to come ahead of 2024. I mean, there has to be at the very least, whether he moves into another role. But let me just say this, that expecting that this kind of an action to have any other or any different kind of impacts than previous other media outlets or editorial denunciations or anything like that of this, it would be a critical error in understanding what the very nature of the past presidency was, not built on the same kind of traditional power structure, support models, donation efforts, etc., that previous ones did. I mean, if really you want to boil down to it, this is not a new thing about denunciation. Whether or not it erodes part of the base of it, I remain a bit dubious of. So if you really want to say, what is this going to mean for 2024? If we're really getting around to that, I'm still not that sure, because one of the things is that, I mean, of course, the former president was a reality TV star, The Apprentice, and all those kind of things. And the previous times he's popped up in the national discourse, either the birtherism and those kind of things, those were only really the surface level things. There's been a whole lot more going on under the surface practically this whole time. So to say anything about that, this will quash the chances or anything like that would be a critical misunderstanding of how this has worked and why, among other things, we'll keep talking about it and focusing on it as we get closer to all these elections here. So thank you for the point in the call. We got to get to that next break right now. Coming out of this break, more calls in the line. Those phone lines, again, open right now if you're wanting to get on. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On Gateway West at Lee Trevino, a vehicle is blocking the right lane. Stay to the left there. Reynolds at Durazno, an accident reported there, and it's slowing traffic on Reynolds quite a bit. You can take Yandell or Chelsea instead. South Desert Boulevard closed again today, southbound between the Loop and Artcraft. And road construction's got the left lane closed both directions, Delta at Alameda Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third row seating. Get up to $8,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus CTNL. 0 APR is $16.67 and 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined. Excludes Hellcat, SRT, and TRX models.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Do flowers have best friends? I don't know. Hey, look. Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House press secretary says President Biden is doing quite well as he recovers from COVID.
He continues to respond well to Paxlovid after his fourth day of treatment.
Karine Jean-Pierre made that comment during a briefing with top White House COVID advisor Dr. Ashish Jha. Jha repeated a call for full vaccinations and booster shots. He noted roughly 400 Americans are still dying every day. The president said he's hoping to be back at work in the Oval Office by the end of the week. Senator Chuck Grassley says multiple whistleblowers are raising concerns about potential corruption with the FBI and Department of Justice. The Iowa Republican has written a letter to the directors of both the FBI and DOJ about claims of tampering by senior officials in politically sensitive investigations. A House January 6 committee member is releasing unseen footage of testimony about former President Trump's refusal to condemn his supporters' actions during the Capitol riot.
Virginia Democrat Elaine Luria tweeted the video. It shows daughter Ivanka Trump responding to a draft of her father's January 7th Rose Garden remarks. One of the crossed out lines read, "You do not represent me," referring to the Capitol rioters. She said those revisions look like her father's handwriting. I'm Lisa Taylor.
The state of Florida is asking for a lawsuit against a law deemed the Stop Woke Act to be thrown out. The legislation is aimed at how race-related lessons are taught in the workplace or classrooms. A challenge was filed by businesses last month who called the measure a violation of the First Amendment. State attorneys disagree and say the measure only prevents companies from requiring training programs that feature racial elements. The man accused of carrying out a mass shooting on a subway in Brooklyn is finding out when he will stand trial. A judge tentatively set Frank James's trial date for February 27th. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. 2 more people have died while in the custody of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, bringing the total number of in-custody deaths to 14 so far this year.
Last Friday, a 35-year-old man was found unresponsive in a housing unit at the George Bailey Detention Facility. Staff provided medical aid, including several doses of naloxone, but he was pronounced dead. This comes a day after a 64-year-old man died in the hospital just hours after he was compassionately released from Sheriff's Department custody. The man had been in custody since January of 2021, but had been in and out of the hospital for most of that time. The incident is still being investigated as an in-custody death. I'm Eddie McCoven.
The federal government has extended Oregon's reinsurance program through 2027. The program spreads the risk to health insurance companies of high-cost claims. It's funded by a 2% assessment on all major medical plans. It raises $54 million a year. New Jersey's program incentivizing residents to buy electric vehicles is expanding as it heads into its 3rd year. Natalie Migliori reports.
Governor Phil Murphy says first-time electric vehicle buyers could get up to $4,000 with Charge Up New Jersey.
We know this incentive can push more buyers to making the decision to go electric.
And as more EVs hit the road, Public Utilities President Joe Fiordaliso says a total of $10 million is going towards charging stations.
We don't want anybody to say, I'm not buying an electric vehicle because there's not enough charging stations.
More than $30 million will help local and state governments expand their electric vehicle fleets.
A Texas man is earning a Guinness World Record for his Sonic the Hedgehog collection. Barry Evans of Dayton, Texas, has collected memorabilia related to the video game character for 30 years. All of his items were officially tallied at 3,050 for the record. Evans bought a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for Sega Genesis in 1992, and it's been his passion ever since. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Green. That's green. Enter it now.
Make this the year you go to our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Friday, September 23rd and Saturday the 24th. Buy your tickets now at AXS.com.
Stream it free on the CW app and CWTV.com.
Having the time of your life is more rewarding than ever when you visit any of the MGM resorts nationwide. With MGM Rewards, dine, stay, play, and earn on all of it. Get details at MGMRewards.com. Subject to earning and redemption limitations applicable to certain purchases and in certain states.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast.
For years, the Manhattan Project, the project to build the first atomic bomb, remained classified. But one man in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, documented the entire thing with his camera. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
You're
listening to me for free right now. And that's awesome because it seems like they're trying to charge you for everything these days. But not radio and not the iHeartRadio app. It's all free. Podcasts, streaming music, digital radio, all in one for $0. It's like, why wouldn't you download it? Unless you want to pay for it. But that's weird. Don't do that. I mean, you can't. But you can listen to everything you love on the iHeartRadio app. Download it today for free.
iHeartRadio. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media outlets we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in on most of those platforms here. RJ Louis Pinato, Kathy Codry, Steve Ivy, John Browston, Robbie Flores, and more. Edgar Ortiz. Again, congrats on the successful contestation. I will probably be looking at that next year, and not necessarily looking forward to it, but much like, an oncoming train, got to learn to jump out at the right time. Anyway, John Browston, Ed Cormore, dropping those likes and reacts. Let's get to it that way. Calvin Williams, Steve Ivy, Flaco Jimenez, Matt Olson, Ida Beza Gardner, Ted Kors, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, and of course, Michael Robert Tipton. We do appreciate all of that and a lot of comments coming in here. Yeah, and we'll keep taking those calls as we do. Again, that number to call if you want to get on the line full up at the moment, but if you want to squeeze in a little bit later, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A couple of things we're talking about here today, the local taxes or what they might be going at. So hopefully that one contestation that you had going on there, who was it that had Edgar Ortiz, hope that won't throw a wrench into the plans for them to release the actual valuations, or very least not revise them too much. If you have a multi-billion-dollar property that you are contesting the valuation on, let us know. Otherwise, I think it'll probably be fine. And we'll really get into further those conversation. Also, local school safety, what is being done here, including, of course, the impending story coming up tonight from our news partners at KFOX 14 and friend of the show, Estefania Seifert, her report on that, as well as border visits. A lot of stuff going on today. So let's get back into it on those phone lines. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Daniel on the east side here with us right now. Daniel, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how are you?
Listen,
I just wanted to make a couple of comments, about two or three of them. Number one is on Trump on January 6th. True that Trump had enough time in which he should have sent a text or got online or got on Twitter where he loves to go and said something, go home, please, and he didn't. So there's a spot there that kind of, you're like, what happened here? How come he didn't say anything? And, that thing was going on 3 hours and he had not mentioned anything. That's not good. The other thing is that, this thing, all of that came up with the January 6th and the hearings, it's really what we call a Congress court. And I'll tell you why. Because the Republicans didn't have an opportunity to cross-examine the witnesses. There are really some funny things going on with some of the witnesses. But the most important thing here is this, that out of this, they're going to try to indict Trump. But I'll tell you what I think. I think that before that, they're going to have to indict Biden. And that is because there's a lot of things coming out with Hunter. So the DOJ might just go and say, well, we're going to indict Biden. And at the same time, we need to stop Trump from running on 2024. We'll indict him. That way, the people, the country will not say we're unfair. That's what I think. It's, you have to really look at it. Why all of a sudden they want an indictment? And I'm sure they're trying to stop him from running. But I also think that they know that something's going to happen to Biden because he is up to his neck with his son Hunter. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to just mention is this: the war in Ukraine. I was a Democrat for many years. I traveled quite a bit, and especially in South America, and I realized that really socialism does not work. I've seen it, but I haven't seen it right here in El Paso, obviously. But if you go to other countries, you're going to see how socialism and country-owned companies and petroleum and all that does not work. It doesn't work at all. It's a messed up deal, and that's where we're going. So, for those of you that want the government to control things, that's great. That's fine, but it's not going to work. The other thing is that with the Ukraine thing is that a lot of people in my party always talk about the corruption in Ukraine, and I can understand why, but. The fact that the Russians did attack a sovereign country because they wanted more land is not correct. And people are going to say, well, Ukraine was corrupt. But you know what? We had our share of corruption. We have our share of corruption. We've had it since the beginning of the Revolutionary War. So we need to look at ourselves, too, and say, well, they have a problem with corruption. They can fix that, but they're trying to grow. They're trying to grow a republic. They're trying to be democratic, and I think we should back them up with that. It's not like Afghanistan or Iraq. It's something that is really happening, and I think that I would want, if I was a Ukrainian, I would want somebody to back me up if I was facing a big giant, and so. That I just want the Republicans to realize that before they get into this party thing and start saying, yeah, let's get out of Ukraine. This is Biden. And let's look at the real facts. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, sure
Thank
thing.
you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
I mean, yeah, the current administration, just to your first point there, I mean, it's still very much underwater and increasingly reaching new heights of disapproval ratings. 538 putting it at 57.1% with only 37.7 aggregate approval rating going on there. And I remain dubious that there will ever actually be any indictment of the former president at this point, Donald Trump, just because, well, in general proving of things, it's difficult to prove a negative. That something didn't happen. That something, that someone didn't do something. Because proving someone did do something is a lot easier. You have actions to look at. So even just the legal issues come with it. And even then, what exactly the charge is, I mean, I know there's been a lot of throwing around of words of both administrations, things like treason, other things. But really, the major point is, and even made during the hearings that I was listening to, was, dereliction of oath of office along those terms, which the remedy for that is impeachment and removal from office that way. So if someone's already out of office, that is a moot point then. So that's why I remain dubious. And saying that, well, the president didn't do this, the president allowed bad things to happen and therefore should go to jail is a hell of a precedent to set. And why, when I think that, I, again, just remain dubious. And then also the idea that, that Russia can just throw its weight around and invade anyone they want. And everyone just be like, well, that country had problems anyway, so sure, let them do what they want. That's a real heady line to try and enforce to also there anyway. So appreciate the point in the call. Let's try to get at least one more call on the line before we hit that next break right now. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I'd like to chime in on the taxes, especially the property taxes going up for a lot of people. And I understand that we have about 5 taxing entities.
Yep.
And politicians especially will point to the fact that, well, I voted against or petitioned against having a raise in what the hospital is charging, and then meanwhile the city taxes go up. How to resolve that, I don't know, because one entity is fighting against the other. And then we, the people, and the county and city governments need to decide, we need to realize that we have many things that are very nice to have, desirable things.
Sure.
We need to concentrate on what is actually in our pocketbook and what we can afford.
Mm-hmm.
Can't afford to have all this stuff that sounds really good, but it's just not practical to do this. And here's the thing, Andrew. We see this every year that the taxes go up.
Mm-hmm.
People will complain and complain, but they don't do anything about it. And I think this is a solution that we have to put our heads to, put it to the voters also, not just the managers and representatives, but to the voters and say, hey, do you want to have a raise in your property tax because of this, and this? Yes or no? You know, that's the way I look at it. And the last thing I'd like to say before I hang up is this.
Mm.
I've heard a lot of nonsense from some of my friends about the president. Well, he's got COVID and everything. That's too bad. Well, good for him. I don't believe in that. You know, we're all human beings. And whether you're politically in favor of the president or you're not, okay, wishing people well, especially with their health, to me, that's a sin. And we shouldn't do it. Wish him well and leave the politics to the side. That's all I got, Andrew.
Well, fair enough here. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one there, too.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, on the taxes, essentially what you're asking for and should exist but doesn't is there to be kind of a centralized tax advocate or I guess taxpayer advocate, because to put it in, well, times, the stuff that I still sometimes have nightmares about until I wake up and realize that I'm a grown damn adult and haven't been in high school for years, but thinking, oh man, I forgot to do my homework. There was that essay today. May or may not have pants on, those kind of situations in the dream. And then I remember, oh, right, I grew up and I have not been in a classroom in a study capacity in a better part of a decade here, but still those kind of nightmares of each class, like, sure, this class may assign you 5 hours of homework a night, but if each class assigns you 5 hours of homework a night, that's more hours than there are a day. And the similar kind of things ends up coming. The modern equivalent, the adult equivalent, is then of taxes. Oh, we're only doing a small tax increase, but if every agency, every entity looks at that thing saying, oh, it's only a small increase, it ends up being a sizable tax increase. So there's not much coordination, I guess would be the right way to put it. I don't really know, because this is not an area much explored whenever we got so many fingers and so many pies and so many slices being taken out of those pies as we talk about with this. So yeah, it's frustrating, and honestly, it has just not been that popular with the actual voting public in town before this. The last campaign that I can really think of, and I only think about it because even after the campaign was over, the sign was up on as we were approaching downtown on I-10, headed westbound. Actually, there was a sign on that abandoned parking lot saying enough with high taxes. I want to say that was Aliana Apodaca's campaign back in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. I might be, in which case I apologize, but that's what I recall anyway. And the slogan was enough with high taxes, because this has not exactly been a new issue, but a new focus has definitely been on it with whatever the economy is doing. There not being a recession sounds a little bit like wishful thinking. And if you go by strict technical definitions of what that term means, we're already in one. And even if there's still strong growth under it, that means we're maybe in a worse situation of stagflation, but we're getting really deep in the weeds here. Point is, to your initial idea about dealing with the taxes and how they deal with it, if we don't get all of the bodies on the same page about, sure, you have needs and you're saying that we need to do more things from your aspect, but you're not looking at the whole picture, you're just going to be squeezing people. And even in a community that has been historically vaunted as a low cost of living area, people are going to be squeezed out of it. So without that being taken into mind, and people taking that mentality to the ballot box, including upcoming here in November, and looking at what these outcomes are of all of these budget sessions, local tax setting season, as I'm calling it, yeah, it's going to get messy. And very much agree with you on the last point there about, well, wishing people well, because we are all human. May disagree with them more than not, but, well, I agree with you very much so on that point here. And RJ saying, let's hope I'm not doing a speech in that dream here. Yeah, it sometimes happens. I mean, yeah, it's literally been out of school for any college for more than a decade now and still having those dreams of, oh my gosh, I forgot to do that speech now. Oh my, wait, no, I have a mortgage. What? I am not in school anymore. Anyway, let's get to that next break right now. We got calls on the line and we got more comments coming in, including some visuals here that you may or may not want to skip for yourself. But in any case, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Oh, geez.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Executive Center Boulevard, a stalled truck is blocking the right lane closed. Stay left there. I-10 eastbound at Mesa, watch for a semi-trailer off on the left shoulder. Lower Valley, 375 northbound at the 10 Gateway, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. And South Desert Boulevard, southbound closed again today between the Loop and Artcraft. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The political leaders are only making things worse, and I can't believe what they just did this week. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention. Like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See, we didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to chime in on the show. Of course, we got those comments coming in over on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, as well as the comments coming in and calls over on the phone line. Full up at the moment, but if you want to squeeze in, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. On the later side, Monica Cervantes letting me know something to look forward to here. Hate having the dreams where you're suddenly disrobed at school. Half century into the human experience there and still having dreams like that. That's something to look forward to here. But seriously, I mean, that's the kind of similar reasoning or fear I have anyway with all these taxing entities, and it adds up to the number here. Yeah. Maria Coleman asking slightly more seriously, have the city officials considered the scenario of mass foreclosures, people losing homes due to high taxes and utilities? That does remind me of what happened in, I believe it's actually been in the news lately, what happened in Detroit, where people were actually overestimated on their taxes and having foreclosures, people losing their home. I mean, that city has been depopulated by about a quarter of its total top population there because of things like that. Now, that's not the total reason that people end up getting foreclosed on, but it happened in some cases, and some is more than should be allowed. The total number should be none. Calvin Williams saying, hey, if you can't raise the city's revenue by increasing the population, you can always raise the taxes. See, here's the thing, and why these narratives may get confusing is because the taxes, the way they are, they've actually already pushed for, at least from the city side of things, other taxing entities are going through their process right now. They've pushed for lowering the rate as it is, but because the way property values have increased and those evaluations and those contestations that have been going on, as Edgar Ortiz was pointing out, haven't been happening necessarily en masse. Even if they lower the rate, you could still end up paying more in taxes to any particular entity because the base has risen that much more. So that's why we're going to keep talking about this, and there's probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll really be getting more focused on here. So let's go back to those phone lines again. A lot more comments coming in online, but the number to call if you want to squeeze in, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Rick in New Mexico on the line with us here right now. Rick, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you very much, Anthony, for the time again. Your show is great, giving everybody their time to speak. It would be kind of good if you could just cut it to 2 minutes or something. I'll try to be fast because some people go on and on and on like they're just having a conversation, which it gets a little redundant, but okay. Enough of that. I wanted to do 2 issues here, Anthony. One issue that I wanted to speak about that I keep seeing people are unaware about, that it sounds that way. It has to do with this Raul saying about the 6th thing going on, about Trump, him being, derelict on the job or whatever. Clarify this. I want to clarify it to all your listeners. 5 days before, they had an idea that things were going to get like this. Trump puts, I want 250 National Guard. He put the request in. There's 5 witnesses. Yeah, they saw him make the request. They saw him say the request. Okay, they have written proof. The arms on the arms of guard, head of police in D.C. Wrote a paper denying. No, we don't need it. Pelosi, they both control that. Pelosi in writing. No, we don't need it. They got it in writing. They denied it. Where does the fault land? On their shoulders. Trump already, no derelict, he already requested 5 days ahead. So that settles that. This is a sham court, like the other gentleman said. No, you got to have cross-examine. You got to have both sides. This is a big trying to brainwash, but it's kind of good. Everybody's seeing the lies and the truth. It's becoming clear and clear. So they're doing themselves in. Now they're fool. I try to keep not mention. I saw the other mentioning about the Trump and all that. So that's enough. This I want to ask Andrew about. This is a private, off of all issues. This has to do with a veterinarian in Las Cruces. This is a story, and I want all your listeners to see where I stand, because I think it's incorrect. I think it's animal abuse. This is what's happening. I have my dog Shadow, and he needs 2 medications. He needs dextromethasone, sodium phosphate, and cyclosporin. If he doesn't get those, after a while he'll go blind and he clouds his eyes. Okay, so I ran out of one medicine, and I've been getting this medicine from Dr. Schumacher in Las Cruces on 701 Valley Drive, for the past 3 years. And so I call, I need one of the medicines, the dexamethasone. So I call, and they tell me, he needs an exam. It's been 3 years, and we have to do it here. And I said, well, why didn't you tell? I didn't. No, we can't medicine until he gets an exam.
Rick, it seems like we're breaking up here a little bit. Tell you what, if you want us to look into something, or particularly something with any of our news partners that do the investigative reporting here, go ahead and send us an email. That email is andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com. And I thought probably for a situation like this, the better way to talk about it anyway, but it seems like we're breaking up here. So again, if anyone wants to send me anything, I get a lot of emails, but I try to go through ones, particularly if you ask a response from me, at andrewpolk@iheartmedia.com. And just in a situation like this, with a specific issue you have with the business, that might be the better way to go about it anyway. So go ahead and send me an email, just because it looks like we're breaking up there a bit. So appreciate the point in the call, particularly on the first point, but also on the second one as well. If you want to email us more about those details, please do so. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Steve Ivey asking what's affecting it might be able to help, but we'll have to get more to that here. But let's get to at least one more call before we hit that next break. Right now, we do have Phil on the east side here with us right now. Phil, thanks for joining us.
Yes, the average taxpayer has to make cuts to their budget, and we've been doing this, I think, the past 3 years with COVID. So before any agency, entity, political, non-political, wants to raise their taxes, they need to show us what cuts they're making, because the government takes our money and spends it because it's not their money. So I want to see where they're making intelligent cuts. I work for such an agency, and I know that they waste a lot of money. So before you increase any of our taxes, federal, Texas, at the state level, at the local level, show me where you've made cuts. Because everybody's having to make cuts. The government should have to make cuts too.
I know. Yeah, that's an important one. And one of the things that I look at when I'm evaluating how I agree or disagree with the way any elected official has made those decisions, particularly, again, the weirdness of the situation we're in right now is that, well, basically, if they do nothing and just keep it the way it was, taxes are going to go up. How much? In some cases, I know for like the county, for instance, if they don't do anything, that could even trigger the rollback rates, which gets a little bit deep in the weeds, but I'm not sure really which levels it affects it. I mean, I know it affects the county, not positive about the city or the other entities such as the hospital districts, the community college, those kind of things. Because there have been some changes to the Texas Constitution that do affect these, but whether they affect all levels equally is not something I'm positive about. Need to look into that further. As we get further into these conversations, we certainly will. So I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, that's going to take us to that next break right now. Again, we have a lot of calls on the line, and if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Get into more of those calls, more of those comments, more of everything we do throughout the rest of the show here, getting into the bottom of this second hour. But back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with your KFOX 14 News Update. A 37-year-old woman fired several gunshots apparently at the ceiling inside of Dallas Love Field Airport today before an officer shot and wounded her. Police say the woman was dropped off at the airport, walked into a restroom, then emerged wearing a hooded sweatshirt or some other clothing that she hadn't arrived in, pulled a gun, and fired several shots apparently at the ceiling. An officer who was nearby shot the woman in her lower extremities. She was taken to the hospital. Meantime, some flights from El Paso to Dallas were diverted to Midland. And authorities have arrested a suspect in connection to a deadly shooting that claimed the life of a 16-year-old El Pasoan. 19-year-old Jalen Jamal Jennings was arrested in Killeen, Texas, in connection to the shooting that killed Fabian Gomez on December 21st, 2021. The shooting happened along the 2200 block of Saragosa Road in Far East El Paso. Police reported that an altercation between occupants of two vehicles resulted in the shooting. I'm Erica Castillo, and that's your KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound at Executive Center Boulevard, a stalled truck is blocking the right lane closed. Stay left there. I-10 eastbound at Mesa, watch for a semi-trailer off on the left shoulder. Lower Valley, 375 northbound at the 10 Gateway, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. And South Desert Boulevard, southbound closed again today between the Loop and Artcraft. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the Forewarned Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. We're going to see chances for thunderstorms increasing into our afternoon. The biggest threat with any storms that develop will be some brief heavy rainfall, which does mean we could see some localized flooding. Temperatures not as hot. Thankfully, we'll be in those mid-90s, right around where we should be for this time of the year, nearly all week long. After today, we'll see those chances for thunderstorms normalize as well, about a 20% chance each afternoon. Make sure you're keeping your eyes on the sky.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If summer is heating up your hiring needs, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job and get hiring today by visiting Indeed.com/credit.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier.
I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Red Pilled America is the storytelling show that is saving our culture. This week we answer the question, do illegal aliens commit less crime than American citizens? Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online at KTSMradio.com.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media platforms. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso as more or less the main one. That's where a lot of the comments come in, and the Thunderdome definitely is of those comments. That's where the Skeptic Squad comes out anyway. But also over on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, other Facebook pages, Twitter at Talk El Paso, YouTube, the Talk El Paso channel, and twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And Maria Kalman on these taxes things, pointing as always, paying the city manager more than the president of the United States is not reining in spending. Remember who supported this move when you vote. This is why we focus on the policy that we do. Because sure, I'd love for good things to happen is a nice sentiment when it comes to an elected official. But how you actually going to do it is always the trickier thing. The devil is always in the details. Absolutely here. And Calvin Williams on the point of, the point is your house should be like gold. You pay for it and then you store it. You should not have to pay taxes on it every time the price changes. Why should I pay taxes on the value of my house when the value the next year could be less? A lot of points on that. Also on accountability and such, and including on Rick's story there about vet and things like that. So I'm saying, even though we lost you on the line there, if you want to make sure to send it to us there, please do so. And a lot more dog story. I mean, I feel for you being an animal owner and caretaker myself. Definitely feel for having issues with it. So we'll definitely love to hear more from you on that. But in any case, let's get back to those phone lines right now. The number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Regarding border security, 4 days ago, Mayorkas made a statement, according to the New York Post, that the border is very secure.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, I'm sure there's some way you could couch the figures to make it somewhat seem like that, but I have doubts. Let's just put it that way.
According to CBP officials, they're refuting this because in 1 year, this year alone, we have seen more apprehensions than ever before. In other words, we have broken all records for apprehensions.
Apprehensions, gotaways, definitely outpacing last year. So calling it secure, that it is, I mean, I don't know how we came up with that whole phrasing.
Yes, sir. And to local and Texas news, guess who else has contributed money to Beto O'Rourke's campaign?
I mean, there are a number of donors here locally, but who did you have in mind?
Just today, it came out Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I did see that one go by. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised. I mean, really, particularly the last time I happened to be out of the country for a little bit, the last statewide campaign anyway, during the 2018 Senate race. And I literally, while in Florence, Italy, ran into someone wearing an O'Rourke shirt. That is, I think I took a picture. If I didn't, I should have, because it definitely happened. So I guess I can't say I'm surprised.
Well, yes, and of course, we all know Beto received a $1 million donation from the biggest plutocrat, that one of the biggest plutocrats that exist, and that's George Soros.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. So much for preserving our democracy. And this last point goes to Raul, Comrade Raul. He talks about the president at the time, Donald Trump, duty to protect the Constitution. Well, when it comes to protecting the Constitution, it's a two-tier system of justice that the Democrats employ, one for Republicans and one for Democrats. But what can I say? What's her name? Lynn Cheney, and everybody should have taken note of this. She flat out stated in her opening statement that credible intel information was received that there was going to be an attack on the Capitol. Why was this not nipped in the bud by the powers at be?
Let me just say this, and this is one of those big reasons that I've been very in favor of an actual full in-depth investigation into this whole situation, because the reality will probably not fit anyone's nice, neat political narrative in any case, because for something to happen on that way and the way that it did, I mean, just much like the Uvalde situation, the fact that there are a whole lot of hard things that need to be confronted there were a lot, and I mean a lot of failures leading up to any bit of what happened on January 6th. So to say that it only points one way is probably something that's being ignored there, if that is the case.
Well, like I said before, it should have gone to a special prosecutor to investigate this. And one more point that I need to make to Comrade Raul: surprise, surprise. Guess what? Biden's approval rating is less than that of Donald Trump. Anyway, go ahead. I turn the mic over to you.
Yeah, I appreciate the point in the call there. Yeah, he's underwater, and it doesn't. It's not trending upwards. Any expectations I have anyway, anytime soon here. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it here. Flaco Jimenez asking, isn't Gwyneth British? No, she was married to a British guy there for a bit. And I guess I don't know what her citizen. I don't think she renounced. I haven't seen if she. I don't pay that much attention to celebrities, so I'm sorry if I'm behind on hers, but I don't think she's renounced citizenship or anything. I mean, she is American in general. I don't know, but yeah, if that were the case, that would be concerning, but no, to my understanding, she is American here. Anyway, more commentary also going on vet situations. Again, follow on that over on our social media. But let's get to at least one more call here before we hit that next break. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
I was going to make a comment on the January 6th committee. There is nothing, absolutely nothing President Trump could have done before or after to convince the Trump haters that he did the right thing. Prior to the riots, he signed that authorization, and it was ready. He did that proactively.
Mm-hmm.
Pelosi said, no, we don't want the troops. Bauer said, no, we don't want the troops. Schumer said, no, we don't want the troops. So what was the president supposed to do? He couldn't send them over there. There's protocol he needed to follow. As a matter of fact, he was ahead of the game by signing that authorization before time and then taking it and offering it to them rather than them coming and asking for the troops. Secondly, so President Trump sat in front of a TV and was watching the riot. What did the Trump haters want him to do? Send a tweet were any of the rioters waiting for tweets while they were at the Capitol? And what about all these FBI agents? I don't know if anybody watched the congressional hearings with an FBI agent there testifying. They asked her about that Epps gentleman who everybody believes is part of the FBI, who was one of the top 10 they were looking for. And all of a sudden his picture is no longer part of the ones that they're looking for. There were at least what I heard, 80 FBI agents there. So there was so much stuff going on. And if President Trump had sent the National Guard in and something had happened, it was his fault. They didn't go in, it's his fault. He didn't send a tweet, it's his fault. What was he supposed to do? Go to the steps of the Capitol? I mean, I don't know what these people want, these Trump haters really think that the president could have done after the fact. He tried to be preemptive. He tried to do that before the fact. Everybody knew and everybody expected thousands of people to be there. So we need to move on from this January 6th commission because we're never going to get the truth from them. It's pretty clear from the beginning, this is one-sided, just like the hearings they had for impeachment, except at least over there they had a defense. And then regarding our local politics, I don't know if this is a fair comparison, but the city council is elected based on their districts. The mayor, he is voted in by the citizens of El Paso.
Right.
So it's equivalent to telling the Senate in Washington, your vote doesn't count, but you can vote with us. Just wipe away the Senate because we elect our senators statewide and our Congress people locally, district-wide. So I see that similar to what the local government is. The mayor is equivalent to the Senate and the representatives are equivalent to Congress. Why would our Congress, our city representatives vote to put on the ballot to take away his veto? We have an opportunity in November. I think there are 4 or 5 of the commission of the city council people running for office. Go out and walk with your vote and change the composition of city council. And that it will send a message. The people of El Paso are tired of not being consulted or considered when they just want all these things. And that's the word, want. Do we need or do they want all these things? Especially now with the economy the way it is, they need to stop and think about our community, the demographics of our community, who lives on a fixed income, and who can afford what they want. You can't give everybody what you want or everybody what a few want. So I think it's time for El Paso, and I hear all these phone calls. Everybody is, upset with our taxes, rightfully so. But we need to go in there and change who we have voting for us. Wasn't it several years back or many years back when we had how many people in our city government, our leaders, that were up for conviction, had been convicted or awaiting trial or awaiting their sentence? That was a pretty sorry time in our history. We haven't gotten there, but we need to change what's happening in the city. So once again, I'm going to tell everybody, vote with your feet. Go out there. You have an opportunity in November to make a big change, not only locally, citywide, but we have an opportunity. You saw our representative Escobar with her clenched fist up in the air on abortion and getting arrested. At least give her credit. She will fake her handcuffs. But we have to make change. People are tired and fed up, but it's not going to change if you're not tired enough to go vote and express your dissatisfaction and even anger with what's happening in our country and locally. And she's over there, open the borders. We see what's happening. Stash houses all the way down the border. Children being sex trafficked. People get tired. Be angry enough to go vote and make changes. I keep telling El Paso, please wake up. Please go vote. Send them out of office. We have some good candidates out there. It's time for change, and I'm hoping El Paso will wake up in November.
Definitely encourage people to go out and vote as always. And we have 4 of the city council seats will be on the ballot this coming November. District 1, 5, 6, and 8. And already some crowded fields looking there. District 1 with already 4 candidates listed there so far. District 6 has 3 already, and the other 2, 5 and 8, have 2 candidates. so far. And I think this might get even more crowded on there. So yeah, make sure to pay attention, know who's voting on what their policies are and how they have been doing it. And we'll keep talking about it because yeah, if we don't actively say, oh, I don't know, make sure even if we're paying attention, prove that to them. Well, you get what you get anyway. Yeah, definitely agreeing with that there. So appreciate the point in the call.
Exactly.
You have a good one there.
Thank you, Andrew.
Appreciate it here. So, all right, we got to take that last break right now. Coming out of this break, we will go ahead and squeeze out what last calls we can get on the show here, as well as what we got working on for you. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
2 injury accidents northbound Joe Battle Boulevard, one of them Edgemere, the other at Pebble Hills, with police and paramedics on the scene. Lower Valley 375 northbound at the Alameda Socorro exit, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. On the spur, eastbound Liberty Expressway from the 54 over to the Loop, it's an 8-minute delay. Stop and go traffic. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Right now, 24-count Crayola crayons and Polly Pocket folders are just 50 cents each, and 1-inch binders are only $1.99. In-store only offer ends 8/27, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school. Send them forward at Staples.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Staples has everything for school at great prices. So this year you won't go back to school. You'll be ready to move forward into art class.
A 4-foot replica of the Statue of Liberty using elbow macaroni?
With glue and art supplies from Staples.
By tomorrow.
Right now, 24-count Crayola crayons and Polly Pocket folders are just 50 cents each, and 1-inch binders are only $1.99. Everything on your list at amazing prices. Staples, we're not going back. We're going forward to school. Ends 8/27, in-store only, limit 30.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to get conversational in another language in as little as 3 weeks? Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo te llamas?
Babbel, language for life, celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
Jefferson High School grads, and especially you if you graduated in 1972. Your 50th reunion is here. Can you believe it? All grads are invited to join the class of 72 on Saturday, September 3rd at the St. Pius X Party Hall, 1050 North Clark Drive, from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. You'll relive the best years at a fun semi-formal event. That's Saturday, September 3rd. For tickets, contact Richard Marufo at 915-539-4853.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. If few more topics we're working on for you all for the coming days and weeks. Economic development, what is going on in our region, slowdowns, yes, no, maybe so. We're getting into that, as well as what's going on with voting in Texas, specifically registration, and what might be coming in November, even just on some of those hot topic issues we've already been delving into. And of course, we'll be talking more about some of the school safety things with our news partners over at KFOX 14. And just kind of an example here, letting us know, Edgar Ortiz over in the comments, that last week I mentioned about the 22-year-old that won the gunfight earlier this month about creating that shooting drill in his name, that Facebook gave him an account warning about it. So, yeah, somehow that was offensive. That does happen, and that's why we sometimes choose our words very carefully, particularly what we're actually saying and what comments we put up. You're welcome to do whatever it is. If we ever ban anyone, it happened once because of just obscene spam, essentially. We let you know, but otherwise, we don't, give everyone strikes. That's one of the reasons we're on all the platforms that we are here. But let's squeeze in what calls we can before the end of the show. Here we do have Tony on the west side with us right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, thank you for doing such a great job and having patience with all of us. I don't like to call too often because I don't want to wear my welcome out. But when I found out you got over 250,000 listeners, my goodness, that's a great privilege that we have. We ought to be grateful for what Andrew does for us. Now, that being said, there's a whole lot of talking going on, a whole lot of points and views and Democrats and this. And I really pray about this whole situation because we're being bombarded with information. And I think at the end of the day, for 1/3 of your listeners, what I'm about to say is going to make sense. For 2/3 of them, it's going to be way over their heads. Now, what you have to ask yourself at the end of the day is this. Just 3 questions. Number 1, is there a God, yes or no? And under parentheses in that, stop calling him a religion, because as soon as you call him or Christ or your faith or religion, that gives the other side permission to just cancel you out. So either there is a creator, yes or no. Number 2, did he speak through his Bible, yes or no? Because on Sundays, you swear up and down that it's the word of God, and then the rest of the week, you guys calling it a religion and just scratching it out like you're doing a checklist. And the third thing is, and final thing I'll say this, is to ask yourself, which political party, which political movement is doing what God is against, and which one is against what God is for. And that, at the end of the day, my friend, is all you need to ask yourself when all this information is bombarding you. Thank you, Andrew. Great job.
Yeah, sure thing. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there, too. I know, I catch some flack for it sometimes. I mean, seriously, whatever your motivation from your private life that you bring to interaction in the public life and voting, etc., is valid. If you got a point that you can particularly defend for yourself here, and now it's when we start getting into, and therefore you have to follow my beliefs, that's when we'll start disagreeing. But right up until that point, any reason that someone says, yes, these are the reasons I vote, that's a valid one. And to say anything like, well, you're not allowed to vote on that, like, okay, that's not your prerogative. Someone being able to vote and come and do it, seriously, that's important here. So we're going to have to end it there for today because we are super out of time here for this show. We weren't able to get to your calls. I do apologize, but we'll do it again tomorrow as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank to everyone who did tune in, call in, chime in, comment, participate in the show in any way. That's seriously what makes this worthwhile. So in the meantime, until we see you tomorrow, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles now on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
2 injury accidents northbound Joe Battle Boulevard, one of them Edgemere, the other at Pebble Hills, with police and paramedics on the scene. Lower Valley 375 northbound at the Alameda Socorro exit, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. On the spur, eastbound Liberty Expressway from the 54 over to the Loop, it's an 8-minute delay. Stop and go traffic. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating. Get up to $8,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Selland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Selland Park Drive or online at SellandParkDodge.com.
News on the hour and the hat. KTSM weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden is saying he does not think the U.S. is headed into a recession. He spoke virtually with reporters and said he believes the national economy is transitioning from rapid growth to steady growth. He also cited low unemployment.
We're not going to be in a recession, in my view. The employment rate is still one of the lowest we've had in history. It's in the 3.6 area.
Biden is still isolating and working remotely as he recovers from COVID. A woman is hospitalized following a shooting at a North Texas airport. Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia says the 37-year-old was confronted by an officer at Dallas Love Field after pulling a weapon and pointing it at the ceiling. The officer shot the woman in the legs. A Republican straw poll for president isn't